But first, let's talk about the scourge. That's what I call it, and I'm sticking to my guns. The absolute national scourge of working from home. It goes from the not sublime to the totally ridiculous. So a couple of days ago, we saw the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, in Parliament, pleading that the Bank of England was helpless to do anything about inflation. There was nothing we could have done. It's not our fault. Well, maybe he's right, but maybe they might have been able to offer the nation a little bit more help if the staff were actually coming into work. Nearly all of them only go in once a week, with a plan maybe to go up to 3. Here's an idea: 5 days a week, like everyone else. Do your job. Go to work. Even more infuriatingly, because this is our money, taxpayers' money, because we pay civil servants, the Department of Work and Pensions staff have been invited, while they all work at home, nearly all of them do, 5 days a week, by the way, they're all working from home all the time. They've been invited, just while away their time, instead of just watching Netflix all the time. Perhaps they might like to take part in some motivational workshops paid for by us, the taxpayers, so they can take part in a 45-minute course entitled The History of Sex Toys, which is described as a titillating time warp through ancient Greece via the Victorians, female emancipation, the HIV/AIDS crisis up to the modern day. The history of sex toys. You can also take courses in poker, makeup for men, jive and salsa dancing, and home brewing. This is being offered to people working from home that we're paying for. Why don't they not do these courses and get on a train and go to work? Or get in their cars and go to work. Just go to work. This is ridiculous. Let's talk to former MEP Rupert Lowe. Good afternoon, Rupert.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Joy to join you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think you heard how I feel about this. Working from home, John Corwell, the billionaire, said that it's going to bring this nation to economic ruin if we don't do something about it very soon. The Bank of England says it can't do anything about inflation. Well, it might help if they got some of the staff to work, but that, I guess, in the end is not our money. But I'm outraged by the fact that the Department of Work and Pensions is offering a course on the history of sex toys to its staff working at home. We're paying for it. Outrageous.
Well, look, I totally agree with you. And the businesses I'm involved in, obviously during COVID, we had no choice. People did work from home and, hopefully it was a short-term thing. But I think the private sector and the public sector, you have to draw a differentiation between the two. You equally have to draw a differentiation between older people who've got experience and younger people who are starting to build their careers. So if we take the private sector, most of us have to earn a living. We pay our taxes like you and I do. We collect that, we collect national insurance, we collect pensions, we gift wrap it, and we send it to the state. The problem we've got, so there's the private sector, and I think it's up to the individual companies as to how they treat it. And there are occasions, very rarely in my view, where people can work from home. If they're experienced, they need a bit of peace and quiet. And with modern technology, they've got access to the databases that they need to do the work they need to do, and they know how to do it. That's not the same for the young people who are starting their careers. They need to be under the auspices of the older, more experienced people. They need to be networking. They need to be effectively building their careers, which they can't do, as you say, sitting at home watching Netflix, taking the dog for a walk, or as Boris Johnson said, grazing from the fridge. So with regard to the private sector, I think it's entirely different. Now, the public sector has basically, through regulation, inserted themselves into everybody's lives in a massive way. And what they're doing now is they're failing in almost every aspect of what they do. So whether it's the passport office, whether it's DVLA, whether it's the Home Office, whether it's, renewing your shotgun license, whatever the NHS, which is probably the biggest culprit of all in terms of not delivering. What we've got is a dysfunctional state sector. And if the state wants to talk about working from home, it needs to start to deliver value for the money that we're all paying for the services that they have effectively forced us to take from them. Because they force us now to renew our shotgun certificate every 5 years. They force us to renew our driving license. They force us to renew our passport. They've actually inserted themselves into our lives. And now they're failing to deliver. And they very often charge us for the privilege of doing it.
But that brings into sharp focus, Rupert, my reservation about working from home. It's a delusion to say, oh, this department works just as well. As you say, in the private sector, if companies want to behave like this, that's up to them. I would say they're being very unwise, but it's not for me, you or the government to tell them how to run their businesses. But if it's
I agree.
But if it's a government department, then they should be giving the lead and they should go to work, because to say that a government department works just as well when people are working at home is a complete delusion. It's not true.
Absolutely, Kevin. Well, it's indefensible anyway, and it's even more indefensible if they're not delivering on the service they're supposed to be providing to the public. So in the current situation, I think there's almost no justification for any government department doing anything other than working totally from the office and actually sharpening their act up, because they're actually clogging up the whole of the productive economy. So planning's another thing. If you've tried to get planning recently, again, they're all working from home. You can't get any sense out of anybody. So the productive economy is being strangled by this sort of inefficient, amorphous public sector, which now accounts for over 50% of our GDP. Probably a lot more if you look at the indirect sort of people we employ. And by the way, listening to your previous interview, I think we'll be very lucky to get away with $5 billion on the bounce back loans alone in fraudulent losses to the taxpayer. It's probably going to be a hell of a lot more. I think we lent about $44 billion, and I'd be surprised if we get half that back. And with regard to the civils loans, we might get a bit more than that. But, this is another example of the state intervening in our lives, not being functional and completely failing. And then we get wokery.
Yeah, I agree, but can I just get your comment on the fact that the DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, sees fit to spend taxpayers' money on offering staff there the history of sex toys, a seminar?
It's farcical, Kevin. It's like the BBC spending $100 million on diversity and inclusion. I mean, it is completely and utterly indefensible.